The Judean desert. It can be such a hostile environment in the summer, but in the winter, it's a different story. It's nice, it's green, it's so close to Jerusalem, it's so inviting. And indeed, monks have settled here some 1,500 years ago in the monastery of St. George, and water flowing here and carried by aqueducts used to bring water to the oasis of Jericho. But what's an aqueduct doing here in the back? It is part of an ancient water system that used to carry water to a fortress guarding Jericho, which was built by King Herod and named after his mother, Cypros. And combined with another fortress called Dagon, they monitored the oasis of Jericho 2,000 years ago. But why? What was so valuable about that area at that time? Follow me to find out. Standing on the summit of this hill, you can understand why Herod favored this spot. What a majestic view! And this place also had a big advantage. It wasn't only monitoring the oasis of Jericho, but also the single road that linked Jericho with Jerusalem. And both Herod and the Maccabees invested a lot in the oasis of Jericho, and for a very specific reason. It was a very lucrative industry of a scented oil that was sold in Rome. The final product was worth in its weight equal to gold, the Oppo balsamon. It was a very pleasant scent that was produced from specific bushes grown only here in Jericho, and there was a lot of money involved. So the Maccabees created a fortress to guard it called Dagon, and Herod took this summit and turned it into a fortified palace, which he humbly named after his dear mother, Cypros, a Nabatean princess. And in the 1970s, Professor Netzer from the Hebrew University rushes to excavate this site before it's being developed, and he finds here fantastic remains, especially of a bathhouse in the lower terrace. The entrance was paved with colorful tile floor called opus sectile, and the bathtub was made of a giant block of stone, colorful stone, which we still don't know exactly where it came from, weighing over 1.5 tons. Today it is restored and presented at the Israel Museum, and it was fed, the bathhouse, with water coming from an aqueduct from Wadi Kilt. It was probably a spectacular view here, and also today. It's hard to imagine today the exuberant wealth manifested by a lavishly decorated palace complex that once stood here. Originally, the Maccabees created a set of palaces on the northern bank of Wadi Kilt, and when King Herod took over, he expanded it and created another hall on the other side and a bridge that connects to this towering balcony where he could view the oasis of Jericho and monitor the lucrative industry of Oppo balsamon. This complex was exposed mostly in the 1980s by Professor Netzer and a team from the Hebrew University. Sadly, today there isn't too much that is still visible. 2 miles north of Cypros is another cliff overlooking the oasis of Jericho, which was built up already by the Maccabees as a fortified palace. It was called Dagon, and in Christian tradition it is also the place where Jesus resisted the temptations of Satan. Called Quaruntal, in the early 20th century, the Greek Orthodox Church started building a church over its summit, which was never completed. The balsamon was not only produced in the days of the Maccabees and Herod, but also in the Byzantine period it was still manufactured. But later this industry ceased. Even the botanical identity of this plant was forgotten. But new research suggests that this is the very bush from which the perfume was produced. And today, here south of Jericho, it is produced again. And this oil is not only being sold to the cosmetic industry, but it seems also to have a medical benefit. People infected by COVID-19 who consume it report on relief with their symptoms.